Hello all, I'm Wadabra. Welcome back to Adastra. At this point, Marco and Amicus have known each other for about a month now, and Amicus has made it clear that he wants a relationship with Marco. However, after their kiss on the beach and the conversation that followed, things have gotten awkward between them. Marco feels like his own personal attraction to a Romanesque alien wolf is weird, especially considering he's planning on leaving soon if all goes well with the second trial. So the closeness he feels with Amicus just isn't important enough in the bigger picture of his life to continue to pursue. As Marco once said, his presence on Adastra is very illegal, and with the risk of getting stranded there now looming over him, he feels he needs to be thinking about how he's going to keep himself safe, not flirting with his alien abductor. But the heart wants what it wants, and Marco eventually decides to go for it, even if it's just a short fling. So he decides to ask Alexios for advice, since it's obvious he and Cassius have something going on between them. Then Cato shows up and reveals that the triumvirates have gotten wind of Cassius's plan to eliminate their position, and he's trying to figure out who leaked the information. Interestingly enough, Alex plays dumb and straight up lies to the acting emperor's face. So maybe that cat is someone Marco should keep a closer eye on. Anyway, Alex eventually leaves with Cato, leaving Marco alone to pick some flowers for a bouquet before going to Amicus's room to ask him on a date. Then we get our first sex scene of the novel. But it's not what we were all hoping for. As Marco opens the door to Amicus's room, he finds Amicus plowing Neferu on the bed. Marco flees, but is pursued by Amicus, who found Marco's discarded bouquet and pieced together what Marco was going to ask him. The two of them then have an emotionally fueled conversation/argument where neither of them do a good job at communicating. Amicus tells Marco that the sex was transactional, and that should he fail at the second trial, Marco's pet ownership would transfer from him to Neferu, where Neferu's status as the son of the pharaoh would shield Marco from Cassius, who previously promised to kill Marco when he becomes emperor. Get it? Got it. Good. So, Marco, still reeling from the shock of seeing two alien canines butt-fucking, is confused, hurt, and angry for a variety of reasons. But from what I can tell, he's specifically angry for two reasons. First, that Amicus seems to have betrayed him romantically, and second, and far more importantly, that Amicus has once again made decisions on his behalf without any sort of consultation beforehand. Convinced now that Amicus is incapable of viewing him as an equal, Marco rejects Amicus entirely and demands to either be sent home or blasted off into space, depending on how the second trial goes. So it's not a great place we left these two in. But that's the recap. Remember to like and share this video to help me appease the almighty YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. And as always, content warnings and a link to my Patreon can be found in the description below. Let's get started. For a while, I just wander. I end up pacing the halls of the palace before going outside to sit in the gardens. I don't see anyone. It's weirdly calm outside, especially considering that the Emperor could be decided tomorrow. I wonder how things are in the city, in the rest of the Empire. I look out toward the faint city skyline, glinting gently in the afternoon light. Amicus doesn't come after me. Should he? I'd said such horrible things to him. But even now, I feel like I had to say them. I'm tired of being treated like an actual pet, and now that I might actually become one. Still, I kind of wish he did come after me. I do believe that he was only trying to protect me, that he thought what he was doing was the only way to do that. But after everything on the beach, after I've already told him to just keep me in the loop, honestly, if he'd asked me about it first, even just told me about it, I'd probably have been okay with it. Sure, maybe a little jealous, but okay. I realize that a lot of this anger is because I just feel betrayed. And I feel that way because I really like Amicus. I'd expected him to treat me better after everything. The late afternoon heat is making me sweat, but instead of going inside, I just move under some shade. After a while, I lay back on the bench I'm sitting on, drifting off to sleep. When I wake up, it takes me a while to realize where I am. I stare at the flowers and leaves, gently lit up by the garden lights, until I remember that I'd fallen asleep there. Groggily, I call out for calm, and according to him, I've only been out for about 2 hours. But the sun here always moves fast across the sky. I brush a few leaves off my robe as I get up to walk toward the palace, realizing at this point that I can't exactly avoid going back to Amicus's room forever. At least it'll force us to talk about things after we've cooled down. At least, I hope he's cooled down. My pace starts to slow as I get closer to his bedroom, unsure what to say after everything that's happened. I decide I'm going to apologize, but also expect an apology from him as well. We both made mistakes, but we could get past this if we talked it out. Dinner is still sitting next to the door on its cart, untouched. I pause, my hand hovering over the panel, remembering what I saw the last time I opened this door. Shuddering, I steel myself and press it. The room's empty. No wolf in sight. Cold air creeps out of the room, chilling my bare calves as I continue to stand in the hallway. I realize then that I was holding in my breath, and I let it out slowly. I look up and down the hall in case I might see Amicus, but as always, it's empty. With a soft sigh, I slowly walk in toward the bed before changing direction to sit on the sofa instead. Com had told me that it was the 18th hour, which means Amicus should be getting ready for bed by now, a schedule he follows almost religiously. Maybe he's getting ready for the trial somehow? That would be good, but I'm also getting the uncomfortable feeling that he's just avoiding me. That would be bad, because despite what happened, he shouldn't be thinking at all about me. He could be the Emperor tomorrow. So I sit there, hugging a pillow, waiting. After a while, I grab the food from the hallway and manage to eat a little bit. I wonder if I should save some for Amicus, but decide that he'd be able to get his own food from the kitchens instead of these cold leftovers if he ends up returning. So I send the rest back with the drones and continue waiting. After a few more hours, Amicus still doesn't come back, and I end up laying down on the sofa, waiting to fall asleep. The sound of the door opening jolts me awake, and I quickly sit up, turning to look. Amicus? I stare at the jackal for a moment, feeling a sudden surge of anger in my chest. Hello, Marco. Are you not coming to the trial? I look around. What time is it? The 7th hour, which means the trial starts in less than an hour. Where's Amicus? Preparing for the trial. He It hasn't been back all night.
He was meditating most of the night.
All night?
Indeed.
I frown at the jackal. What do you want? Neferu walks further into the room slowly, before stopping in the middle, a good 15 feet away.
To escort you to the trial, if you'd like. And to also talk.
About what?
I've already told you that you don't need to play stupid with me, Marco.
I sit up straight, turning to face the jackal more directly. I'm not. I'm just wondering why the fuck you have the nerve to show up here after taking advantage of Amicus like that.
What?
I don't think I've ever seen Neferu caught off guard, so the sight is kind of funny. I smirk.
Well, that's certainly a way to look at it.
What other way is there to look at it?
Plenty, if you'd let me explain.
I sit back on the sofa, crossing my arms. Amicus already explained. I become your pet to protect me from Cassius, and in exchange for that, you made him fuck you in the ass. Again, the jackal looks shocked. Then he laughs, the sound high and soft.
Oh dear! There are many ways to look at this, aren't there?
His suddenly cheerful mood irritates me. Listen, I honestly don't want any part of this.
Yes, but you are already a part of it, whether you want to be or not. So please, allow me to explain some things.
I don't say anything, keeping my arms folded, my expression bored. The jackal seems to take that as his cue to continue.
Amicus approached me about this deal a week ago, shortly after the incident with Cassius. It seemed simple enough, and I had to agree with him. Your position in this power struggle is becoming ever more precarious.
I raise an eyebrow. How so?
The rumors about Cassius's intent to disband the triumvirates have saturated the trial, even though Cato has banned all discussion of it. A word is that Cassius has realized who might have started the rumors.
Neferu looks pointedly at me, though I try to keep my expression neutral.
And this has implications for you, obviously, but not only because you possibly sabotaged his chances at the throne.
I feel my stomach turn a little, realizing I've gotten myself into way more than I'd ever intended.
And this also brings into question your intelligence. Far too intelligent for a simian, wouldn't you say?
I open my mouth, but Neferu goes on.
Now, with all of this considered, it was only natural for Amicus to come to me for help. Your life is in danger, Marco, no matter the facade these peaceful palace halls might project.
I stare at the jackal, surprised at how candid he's being with me.
He asked me what I wanted most, and I answered truthfully. An alliance with the wolves if Amicus were to become emperor. Of course, he declined outright, as he should have as the prospective emperor. How could he promise something so important with so many implications all over one pet? So, knowing that was impossible, I offered something a bit more selfish on my part. Copulation with the handsome son of a wolven emperor. To this, he only needed a few moments to agree.
I grimace.
But I want you to understand something, Marco. If Amicus had found even that disagreeable, I would have simply asked for nothing. It is the duty of all Chemians to protect any sapient fleeing wolven violence, whether they be sibling, child, or abandoned. Pet ownership is illegal where I'm from, and the idea is quite disgusting. Don't you agree?
Neferu glances at me.
But wolves love their contracts, and no matter how different Amicus might wish himself to be, he is still a wolf. He despises the idea that he might owe something to a Chemian. And his quickness to accept the deal showed me that, despite how much he wanted to not want to fuck me, as you put it, there was a part of him that did. In the end, he was willing.
I look away, frowning.
And I think this is something that has caused a rift between the two of you. You must understand that sex is casual here. It means nothing more than indulging in our corporeal desires. It's one of the few cultural similarities we share with the wolves. I've been told that simians are more similar to cats in that such things hold much more meaning. But you are no longer on Simia and must understand that things are different here. Even if he wants to, which I believe he does, Amicus can't change his philosophy over the course of a single week.
I finally find room to speak. You're acting like we're in a relationship or something.
You aren't, but you want to be. Amicus loves you. It's clear as vita, as they say here.
I feel that little thrill in my chest, and my face blushes furiously. Neferu goes on like he didn't actually just say that, though.
So yes, if you don't like the idea of Amicus fucking another man, then claim him as your own man.
I frown. Claim?
I'm going by Wolven terms here. I'm sure you have your own.
Did Neferu just ask me to ask Amicus out?
Now, does that clear things up for you?
Even though I just woke up, I'm already feeling exhausted. I guess. There was a little more to it than that, though.
Which I'm sure can be settled in the future. Civil discussions can do wonders. Now, we really must be getting to the trial. If you're wanting to go.
Neferu raises an eyebrow at me. I find myself shaking my head, but not to deny the jackal his request. Rather, it's because I don't know what the hell this guy is up to. I get up, and Neferu offers his arm to me, which I stare at.
Shall I escort you?
This is something I've seen the jackal do multiple times to Virginia and Alex. For some reason, he seems to really just enjoy escorting people around. After his little lecture, I can tell that he's trying to smooth things over between me and Amicus. So, reluctantly, I reach out and take his arm in both hands, if only to please him. And pleased he seems to be. A tugging at the corner of his muzzle makes me think he's trying not to smile too much. As he guides me out the door, I find myself feeling out the fur on his arm. It's much more silky and smooth compared to Amicus, not quite as fluffy. It's not as nice as Amicus's coat, but it does feel nice in a different way. There's a lot of muscle there too, and I wonder if the jackal works out in the amphitheater, though I've never seen him there. I guess I can see why so many people are into this guy, if muscles are your thing. As we continue through the halls, I notice we're taking a different route than the one to the throne room. Where are we going?
To meet the star of the most asinine entertainment show in the galaxy. What better way to determine the fate of all things, siblings and parents alike, than through meaningless woven spectacle?
What? Neferu pauses in front of a door, gently pulling away from me while his paw is held delicately up to the panel.
What I'm saying is that quite a bit is depending on your wolf right now, and he might need some encouragement.
I'm still staring at the jackal when he finally presses the panel, opening the door. When I look back, I find myself looking into a much smaller room, simple and bare, just a bed and dresser. The air is thick with the calming smell of incense as it creeps into the hallway and washes over me in a warm wave. And there, sitting on the bed, is Amicus. Before I can look back at Neferu, the wolf suddenly looks up. We both stare at each other for a moment. Then the wolf is suddenly on his feet, stumbling toward me. He stops himself halfway across the room, though, paws clasped in front of himself. I've never seen him so disheveled before. His fur is stuck up all over his neck and shoulders, his cape is askew, and his eyes are red and bleary. Before I know it, I'm walking into the room toward the wolf. Are you okay? Amicus tries to smooth his fur down, but it sticks right back up. I'm fine. I was just meditating. You look awful. Isn't the trial in less than an hour? Yes. There's a moment of silence that goes by as I just stare at the wolf. Are you going then? You should get ready. Marco. I stop, waiting. The pause is long, and when Amicus finally speaks, his voice is so quiet I can barely hear it. I don't think I was meant for this. My heart sinks. Meant for what? Everything in this damned empire. I've done absolutely nothing right. Everything has been handed to me on a platter my entire life. But the first time I actually have to fight for something? I know you don't think I took this seriously, but I did. I tried. I wasn't prepared. And you were right. I see a little wetness around his eyes, but he aggressively wipes at them with an arm. While weeks ago I might have welcomed this epiphany, this is the absolute worst moment for it. I couldn't even keep my best friend. I would have been a terrible emperor. It takes me a moment to realize that he's talking about me. Amicus. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. That I treated you poorly. That I got you into this stupid mess in the first place. And that I can't get you out of it. The wolf's voice catches on the last part, and I wonder with some astonishment if I'm actually going to see him cry. But he manages to hold it together, looking down at the floor. I just wanted to do what was best for you, but I wasn't thinking of you while I did it. I was inconsiderate, and I'm sorry. Amicus stands there quietly, apparently finished. I don't know if this is more about me or about him feeling inadequate for the emperorship. I have no doubt that our little fight yesterday caused it, though. Seeing the wolf like this, it hurts, but it also makes me kind of angry. This isn't the Amicus I know. I reach up, setting a hand on his shoulder, and he suddenly looks up at me. You're less than an hour away from becoming the emperor. You need to act like it. What? You think your dad would have acted like this when he wasn't sure of himself? Your grandfather? Drusus? There's a time and a place, and now is not the time. I don't know if they would have, but I'm grasping at straws at this point. And honestly, this is about a lot more than you, or me, or anyone here. This is about the lives of millions of sapients. About your entire empire. You think it all deserves to go to shit because suddenly you're not really sure of yourself? You're such a good person. Basically, the opposite of what this society is. And you want to put that into your rule. That's amazing. But now you're suddenly willing to give it up? What the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah, you made a bunch of mistakes, but that doesn't matter now. What matters is that you make sure that piece of shit brother of yours doesn't take the throne. So you'd better get your ass out there and beat the hell out of him in this stupid debate. I'm not sure what else to say, so I stop, breathing hard. After a moment, I realize the wolf is smiling at me, and it takes me a moment to calm down from my Hollywood movie pep talk. What? I am going to go out there, Marco. There's no doubt about that. I was just having a moment. I was trying to be more honest with you, but thank you. I frown. Well, you sure picked a hell of a moment to have it. I know. I've just been having a terrible time after yesterday is all. I needed to apologize to you. I deflate a little, but there's some relief there too, seeing Amicus somewhat back to his old self. Well, I forgive you, but this is a lot bigger than us right now. I know it is, and what I'm feeling is a lot bigger than us as well. The wolf sets a paw on my shoulder. But I'm honest about what I said. I'm sorry, and I will never do anything involving you without your consultation again. And I will take your cultural differences into better consideration in the future. I look up at Amicus, at his earnest face, and I find myself hugging him, and he hugs back tightly. We still need to talk about things, but we can do that later. You need to kick Cassius's ass first. I know. Amicus pulls back, both paws on my shoulders now. And I will. There's a gentle clearing of a throat behind us, and we both look back to see Neferu casually lounging in the doorway. If you're finished, the trial begins in 30 minutes. Immediately, Amicus scowls at the sight of the jackal, but he nods. I'd better be going then. So you're feeling better now? Much better, thanks to you. I smile as I feel a wave of relief, even though this is just like Amicus to be so easily cheered up. I allow the wolf to pull me toward the door. Neferu moves out of the way as we exit the stifling meditation room. All right, I'm on my way to the shower. I'll be watching. The rhetoric thing, I mean. I'll look for you. And we'll talk after this? Yeah, we'll talk after your emperor. All right. Amicus leans in to kiss me on the lips, then pauses before planting it on my cheek instead. With that, he winks, then turns and dashes up the hall, running at a full sprint. I hear a soft chuckle behind me. Wow, that went rather well. I didn't think that would be half as easy. I glance back at the jackal as he basically reveals he's been planning this all along. I guess it was obvious. Shall we head to the throne room? They'll be wanting us sitting down early so they can film us. The whole thing is a dreary spectacle after all. All right. With that, I follow the jackal toward the throne room, hoping that what I said to Amicus is enough to get him in the right headspace to help him win. In just a few hours, I'll know if I'll be leaving soon, or staying for a long, long time. Either way, I'm just glad that this happened. I follow Neferu to the throne room. The cavernous space just as empty as it was during the first trial. Like the first trial, though, a few of the palace regulars are sitting on the benches. Virginia on the left side of the room, while Alex sits on the right. The cat is also sat alone, looking tiny compared to the rest of the room, his tail curled neatly under his paws in his lap. He smiles when he sees me, and I make as if to go sit next to him, but that's when the jackal grabs my hand. I pause and see Alex's own inquisitive look before I turn to Neferu. What?
Why don't we give Virginia some company?
The jackal smiles at me gently, one of his ears flicking in the direction of the she-wolf. You can. I was going to go sit with Alex. Neferu's expression doesn't change, but he doesn't let go either, and his voice takes on a gentle but ominous tone, making me feel a little uncomfortable.
Depending on how this trial goes, we may have some business to take care of before it officially ends. It would be best if you were close to me.
It's then that I realize what he's getting at. Although I don't know what the process of becoming Neferu's pet is, I imagine it involves some sort of official business, like signing or something. So I give Alex a little frown and a shrug, gesturing at the jackal. The cat continues to look confused as I turn away and follow Neferu to the benches on the other side of the room.
Neferu.
Virginia sits daintily on the bench, one leg elegantly crossed over the other as she holds up a paw, which the jackal kisses.
Good day to you, Virginia.
Even though I try to stay behind Neferu, Virginia peers around the jackal's muscular side to stare straight at me.
I see that you've brought a guest.
She holds out her paw again, and it takes me a moment to realize that I should kiss it. I did start that trend after all.
Indeed. Amicus requested I keep him company during the trial.
As I come up from the paw kissing, I see Virginia frowning.
My brother shouldn't be burdening you with a silly chore like that. The pet is capable of staying in his room, I imagine.
It was a mutual agreement. Besides, he is rather good company once you get to know him.
Oh, really? It seems our little simian is full of surprises.
The she-wolf looks pointedly at me, and I don't have much time to wonder what she's talking about before Neferu is sitting down next to her, pulling me to his side to sit next to him.
That would be an accurate observation.
There's a momentary pause before I see Virginia lean forward a bit out of the corner of my eye. When she speaks again, her voice is lowered.
So, the rumors are true?
There's another pause, this time from Neferu.
I don't believe I'm in a position to speculate on that. It is not my place to involve myself in woven politics.
Virginia laughs softly, one that sounds completely fake.
I'm not a fool, Neferu. I may enjoy your suave tactics, but I'd rather you not use them against me.
I would not dream of such a thing, Virginia.
Surely.
Virginia shifts again, and now I know for sure that she's looking directly at me.
So, I suppose he understands what we're saying then?
Well, he is sapient, and he does possess a lingua.
I mean, he understands us.
Virginia puts even more emphasis on the word. I see Neferu looking at the floor, still smiling, though his paws seem to clasp each other a bit tighter than usual.
You'd know better than I, being a wolf. Our children are as intelligent as ourselves, so I'm used to such an idea.
Don't feign ignorance, Neferu. You've been around him far more than I have. It's a simple question, and one that you should answer honestly. otherwise? Am I to assume that you've brought a little spy to our conversation?
Although the words seem harsh and dangerous, Virginia's tone is light, and Neferu just laughs.
You accuse me of deception, yet we both know you've already figured out the answer. Why do you feign ignorance?
The wolf fans herself with an air of nonchalance.
It's the best weapon in discourse. And it is easy to feign stupidity, at least for me. It is expected on my part.
And why would you say something like that?
I have a vagina, Neferu.
It takes me a moment to absorb what Virginia just said, but Neferu is already chuckling with what's probably the first genuine laugh of the conversation. I see Alex look over at us again, and this time it looks like his eyes are narrowed a bit. It takes the jackal a few seconds to get himself under control again as Virginia continues to wave her fan, looking rather pleased with herself.
Sorry, I'm not used to bluntness here.
It's not impossible for us to be blunt on this moon, Neferu, especially amongst friends.
I notice the wolf is looking at me again, and once again, I look down.
Anyway, it seems we made quite the mistake in overlooking Simia. I may have to do a little research of my own in the archives. Amicus clearly knew something that we did not.
Research? I feel my stomach drop. Although Amicus had assured me of things, I don't even know if I really look like a simian. All it might take is a picture to know that I'm not actually from Simia. I try to put that thought out of my mind for now as the doors suddenly open and Cato walks in, making his way quickly to the throne. Virginia finally takes her eyes off of me, and I can only hope that she's not going to follow through on her research plans. The throne room is so quiet that I hear the old wolf grunt as he makes his way up the stairs before turning to face us. After a few seconds, he sits down, his heavy, muscular body slouched a bit in his seat, gazing out at us through his visor. A few more moments pass in silence, and just as I'm wondering if the trial is going to begin, I hear a soft, mechanical whirring sound as the panel in the ceiling slides open. A dozen camera drones drift down lazily, fanning out in the air to position themselves in various locations throughout the room. One of them floats towards us and hovers just above our heads, the lens seeming to focus on my face. I drop my head again, the action having become second nature since I landed on this moon. Neferu nudges me, though.
Come now, Amicus brought you here to be seen.
His tone is light, as always, but I sense he's not saying that just to tease me. We're all playing a role here, and my role is to make Amicus look good, to show off to the triumvirates that he went through great lengths to obtain an exotic, fascinating alien pet. I might not like it, but that doesn't matter right now, so I lift my head. Instead of the dumb, vacant gaze I'd been using this past month, I go with a completely straight face.
Watch the red light on the top of the drone. When it turns green, know that you're being broadcast.
The second trial will begin in 10 seconds.
With that, the lights slowly dim and everything goes completely silent. I just sit there, looking toward the throne, Cato sitting as motionless as an ancient Roman sculpture. Then the doors open, and we all look over, including the cameras. In walks Amicus and Cassius, side by side. They must have been waiting out there next to each other, just like Alex and I had been before the first trial. I have to wonder what that must have been like. Without a word, the two of them walk up to the broad, carpeted aisle in sync with each other. I stare intently at Amicus as he passes, just in case he looks at me and I can give him an encouraging smile. He looks straight ahead, though, a more serious expression on his face than I've ever seen. Everything stays quiet, the only sound being the muffled shuffling of their padded feet and claws on the carpet. Once they reach the foot of the stairs, they come to a stop before they both bow deeply to Cato. This lasts a few seconds before Cato finally shifts again, breaking the illusion that he was made out of stone.
Very good. You may proceed.
With that, the two brothers straighten back up before walking up the steps, splitting off to stand on either side of the acting emperor. They turn around and face us, both standing at attention, arms straight down at their sides. A drone levitates down from the ceiling, coming to a gentle stop mid-air in front of Cato. I notice the tiny red light on the top of the drone turn green, and the old wolf fixes his eyes on the camera.
Welcome to the trial of Rhetoric. Rhetoric has long been a staple of Wolven civilization and one of our greatest assets. While known for our strength and tenacity, so too are we known for our use of words in negotiation.
Neferu snorts next to me, loud enough that I wonder if Cato was able to hear it. I hope not.
This is why it is not only important that we honor the art and history of debate today, but also prove our ability to use it well. Being a competent rhetorician is essential to being a competent emperor. Remember the rules. You will have the floor for 20 minutes. Do not reference your challenger. Now, Amicus.
I see the slightest of twitches in Amicus's frame as he continues to stare ahead.
Yes, Emperor. Please, honor Adastra and proceed to the floor. Offer your policies through the art of speech.
There's a slight pause, then Amicus makes his way down the stairs. If he's nervous, which I know that he is, he's not showing it at all. His movement's calm and reserved. He walks several paces forward, away from the stairs, to stand in the middle of the aisle, just slightly ahead of me. He's so close, and I wish I could just say something. Get up and give him a hug and tell him that he's gonna do great. But I know that time has passed, that the moment that everything has been building up to has just arrived. It's a strange feeling, watching something that's going to have such a huge impact on your life, but not being able to participate at all. I can only hope that Amicus is ready. He begins to speak, and when he does, it's not like his usual voice. Instead, it's deeper, broader, sonorous, I guess. Actually, it's closer to human singing.
20 millennia ago, we were chosen by the Romanus. Out of 1,000 species, they chose us. And was that not for a reason?
He's moving his arms and paws a lot too, in broad, sweeping motions. It's not unlike the dance, though he mostly stays in the same spot.
15 millennia ago, we rejected them. We became the first abandoned sibling, and our empire entered a decline of the likes that we had never seen before, closing off relations with the siblings, losing children, losing resources.
A drone floats around his body, and I can tell that he's playing up the performance to it, dramatically gesturing with overly exaggerated expressions. I realize that it's like I'm watching those dramas I've seen on Adastra television.
We fell long and hard, as if our very moon was sucked into the pit. 5,000 years of misery and desolation. 5,000 years until Drusus saved us all.
Amicus goes on to describe the history that I have a vague knowledge of. How Drusus reestablished contact with the parents, reunited the Wolven Empire, and renamed the world Adastra, a name that represented everything the Empire stood for.
Since then, we've spread far and wide across the galaxy, found lost children, established roads to resources our moon desperately needed. But what did we find to be most valuable? Rekindling diplomatic relations with the other siblings. With them, we shared knowledge and wealth, establishing ourselves as true siblings once again. Until the war. While our reasons were sound for initiating the conflict, the sudden and unexpected attack frightened the other siblings, leaving them to abandon us once more. We defended our rights and our dignity from the Chemians.
Oh, Hotep.
Neferu mutters that under his breath, thankfully.
But at a great cost. Our empire has suffered for our victory. But there is a way to reverse this.
I don't know if the wolf is doing a good job since I have no point of reference, but as far as I can tell, he seems to be doing great. No stuttering or stumbling. His acting, pretty good. Especially if I'm comparing him to the dramatic actors I've seen on the screens. His movements are powerful, but elegant, just like his voice, and I find myself beaming with a sense of pride that I've never had for someone else before. He goes on to describe the policies he'd already told me about. Re-establish relations with the siblings, fully uplift the children, reshape their role in the Empire.
And the first step?
Amicus suddenly turns to face us, though his gaze is on Neferu.
An alliance, one that has been proposed by the Chemians. This may seem like a worrying prospect to you. It has never been done in the history of the Galaxias. But I can promise that while Emperor, I will demand respect and equal treatment from the Chemians. Their arrogance will be tamed, and Wolven dignity will be restored.
The light on the camera drone in front of us is green, broadcasting our image to the entirety of Adastra. I'm at least glad that Neferu is able to control his eye rolling right now.
Within the course of my rule, I will place Adastra on the same pedestal as all the other siblings, if not higher. No longer will we be the half-siblings of the Galaxias. No, we will once again stretch beyond our system, beyond our quadrant, and yes, eventually, beyond the galaxy.
Amicus points to the ceiling.
As Drusus proclaimed 10 millennia ago, to the stars. So I say now, to the stars and beyond.
Amicus pauses dramatically in that pose, then bows before turning and walking back to the throne.
Thank you, Amicus. Cassius?
I let out a breath, watching as Amicus makes his way up the steps, passing Cassius as his brother makes his way to the same spot on the floor. So that's it. Amicus's part is done. Now it's Cassius's turn, and I watch as he walks to the same spot, an angry scowl on his face. It's angrier than usual, almost furious, and I wonder if he's upset about how well Amicus has done. But then he starts speaking, and I realize it's all part of his show.
For 300 years, our empire has been in shambles.
I jump, and I even feel Neferu tense up next to me as the white wolf practically screams.
Not because of the war, not because we chose a different path. No, this is because of Drusus and his flawed vision of the Galaxius as a whole. My brother was right about one thing. Adastra is in the lowest of the low amongst the siblings, the laughingstock of the entire galaxy.
No references to Amicus, Cassius.
Cato barks from across the throne room, but the other wolf ignores him, swiping his paw through the air, his movements aggressive and violent.
Enough of being the butt of jokes, of being spat upon, of being considered at the level of mere children. It is time for Adastra to once again be respected, revered, and feared, just like before Drusus.
Cassius's speech goes on like that, describing Adastra in terms that make it sound like the worst place in the galaxy to be. I don't know if this is good or not. He's definitely being way more intense than Amicus was, and if that's the goal, then I'm worried. I glance over at Neferu and Virginia, and the troubled looks on their faces tell me that I should be even more worried. I look up toward the throne, but Amicus is as still and straight-faced as ever. I feel myself start to sweat, wondering if this is the beginning of the end.
My brother stated that the war was responsible for our sudden decline. A decline not so sudden when it's been happening for thousands of years. No, that war was the best thing that could have ever happened to this empire. It showed that we were unafraid, unintimidated by the most powerful forces in the galaxy. We were mocked and laughed at openly before the war. Now, those laughs are quieter, behind dainty paws as our siblings realize just how dangerous we can be. They take us seriously now.
Cassius turns his angry gaze on us.
But not seriously enough. Look who they sent to propose this alliance my brother spoke of.
No references to Amicus, Cassius. But Cato is quieter now, as if he knows he can't stop the young wolf. Our camera light turns green, and I once again get the feeling that the broadcast is displaying Neferu.
The one and only flower of Chemia, the pharaoh's faggot son with his oils and perfumes stinking up the halls of our palace.
I glance up at Neferu, but his expression has hardly changed, though I see a hint of a smirk on his lips. Meanwhile, Virginia is hiding a look of shock, or horror, or both, behind her fan.
This alliance is highly suspect, and I must wonder what is really going on during these negotiations. Actually, let me give you an idea.
Cassius makes a sort of signal with his paw, then pauses. Everything is silent for a moment, and looking at the cameras, none of them are green. I look around at the others and can tell that they're confused as well.
What are you broadcasting, Cassius?
Cassius doesn't even turn around to acknowledge Cato.
Just showing a small video clip.
Of what?
I see Amicus bristling next to Cato, and I feel the hair standing up on my own neck.
Of a traitorous act between my brother and the flower jackal.
What?
Amicus is so puffed out, he looks almost twice his natural size.
What are you doing? Yes, Cassius. What are you doing? Cato, he bugged my room.
Amicus starts to move, but Cato reaches out from his throne to hold him back.
Stay there, brother. It's almost over. And don't worry, it's censored.
Cassius sneers back at Amicus before the red light of his drone suddenly turns green again. Cassius stares at the lens for a moment, letting the silence drag out for dramatic effect.
Shocking, is it not? I already described the flower of Chemia. Do we also want the flower of Adastra to be our emperor?
Time, Cassius.
Cato's voice is soft, sounding almost astonished. Amicus is clearly having a much harder time keeping his emotions in check now. Even from this distance, I can see him working his jaw. But Cassius doesn't seem to be finished.
And let me leave you with this.
Time, Cassius. Yield the floor.
No, I will not yield. Adastra is the one out of time. This empire is stretched thin, and that tail raiser proposes that we stretch even further? When do we break?
Cassius whirls around and points a finger at Amicus.
He looks toward the children and the siblings while completely ignoring us.
Cassius's bristled fur slowly starts to lay down again, the wolf making a show of trying to get himself under control again.
So, let me leave you with this. While campaigning in the outskirts of Adastra City, areas my brother completely neglected, I came across a young child with the same disease that afflicts me.
Cassius's voice becomes much more quiet, gentle, lowering his muzzle a bit to stare at the floor.
Unlike me, she had no medication to speak of because her poor farming family could not afford it. She was bound to a wheelchair, her bones so frail that something as simple as a bath caused them to dislocate and break.
Cassius's voice catches and, to my surprise, I see a tear slide down his cheek.
How dare this empire let our people fall into such a state that we cannot even care for our own people? I'm hearing that even now, we can't afford to vaccinate those beyond our glittering city.
Cassius looks back up at the camera.
It may seem as if we cannot hear you past the walls of this palace, but I hear you. I promise to always hear you. I will not cater to the needs and wants of the siblings or children, to the Adastran city elites or officials.
Cassius sweeps a paw dramatically to his chest.
Not to the stars, but to you, the people of the Empire. Thank you.
Cassius bows low to the camera before turning to walk back to the throne. There's a long moment of silence as we all just stare at the white wolf. Then Com's voice crackles over our heads.
Triumvirates, make your decisions.
Suddenly, I feel something grasp me around the wrist, and I look down to see Neferu's furry black paw holding onto me.
Marco, very quietly, we're going to get up and head to my room. We'll move around the back so that the cameras do not see.
Why?
Because what Amicus has feared is about to...
The triumvirates have made their decisions.
I see Neferu's eyes widen in surprise.
Already?
He seems to say it to himself, but he stands, and I have to stand with him as he starts to walk up the aisle, toward the back of the room, pulling me along with him. I look back at Amicus and see the wolf looking right back at me. Finally. His eyes are full of worry and regret, and I can tell that everyone knows that Cassius has won. My stomach drops, and I realize that what I've been terrified of happening all month is actually happening. We've lost. I can only stare at Neferu's muscular arm as it pulls me toward the door, toward an unknown and unwanted future.
Lupus.
After all this time, after everything we'd done, we've lost.
Amicus.
Neferu pauses. I look up at the ceiling, toward where I always imagined Com to be if he were real. Then I look back at the throne.
Rhetoric. Amicus.
Amicus looks just as shocked as I am. Cassius, meanwhile, has his jaw set grimly. As always, I can't read Cato.
Lux. Amicus. Jebi. Amicus.
What the hell is going on? It had just seemed like everyone thought Cassius was going to win, and if it was all based on performance, then he should be winning.
Tricelli. Amicus.
There's a pause, one that has me realizing that we just won? Did we really just win?
Adastra.
Cato is staring straight ahead with his visor, and now I can see his paws gripping into the armrest of his throne. The silence goes on so long that Com asks again.
Adastra.
Cato lets the silence continue for several more seconds before finally opening his muzzle.
Cassius.
I don't know what to think, but Com immediately responds.
The trial has been decided. Amicus is the victor.
The silence that follows this time is deafening. No one cheers. No one moves. Even Virginia's fan is frozen, as if we're all stuck in a picture. All the while, the cameras continue to hover over our heads, each one of them flashing green for a moment. Finally, Com is again the one to break the silence.
This concludes the second trial. Thank you.
With that, the camera lights turn off completely, and the drones hover up toward the compartment in the ceiling. The lights come back on. As they do, Neferu is once again pulling me toward the doors. I want to hold back and watch, but the jackal is insistent, and the next thing I know, the doors are quietly sliding open, and we're walking into the equally silent, though much less tense, atmosphere of the marble halls. Where are we going? We just won! As I say that, I feel the excitement finally replace the shock. We won! Neferu, we won!
Clearly. But that does not mean you are safe yet.
What? Neferu is quiet for a moment, At this point, the jackal having let go of my hand, allowing me to just follow behind him. What even happened?
Who do you think should have won, Marco?
I frown. Does that matter? The triumvirate's decided. Amicus won.
True, but not just the triumvirates were watching. We all know who should have won.
I feel myself getting defensive. Cassius was being a total asshole. And besides, he cheated. He went over his allowed time and referenced Amicus and his points. Neferu laughs mirthlessly.
The rules do not matter. I'm sure you've probably realized that by now. Cassius did exactly as he should have, but he lost because of you.
What?
The triumvirates clearly made their decision long before the trial. We were hoping that they would not go against the will of the people, but Cassius's performance forced them to.
You're talking about the rumor about Cassius getting rid of them?
That would be the one. I had thought that such a clearly lopsided win on Cassius's part would have deterred at least most of them. Their hunger for power is insatiable, it seems.
Again, I feel myself getting defensive, but there's also a sense of worry creeping in. Well, I don't know. I think Amicus did great. Besides, it's their role to keep the Emperor's power in check anyway, isn't it?
Yes, but that's not the point of the trials. And the people know that. Adastra will not be happy about this.
Well, what does that mean then? We come to a stop in front of Amicus's room, and finally, the jackal turns to face me.
That I cannot tell you. I am not an expert on the politics of Adastra. I am simply a student here. Amicus may have won this battle, but I can guarantee that the power struggle is far from over. Amicus can explain more to you when he arrives. For now, wait for him in his room.
The jackal starts to turn to leave, but seems to notice the confused and probably worried look on my face. He pauses, then sets a paw on my shoulder.
Do not fret too much over this. It is par for the course in woven politics. That much I do know. Drama is their identity, and we can only be along for the ride.
Neferu smiles at me.
Amicus will keep you safe. And if there's a need you have that he cannot fulfill, I am also here.
I know Neferu intends for that to sound salacious, but I also think he means it, in a nice way. I put my hand on his paw. Thanks. The jackal nods at me before turning away to walk up the hall, probably toward his own room. Once he's out of sight, I press my hand to the panel and walk into Amicus's room, sitting on the sofa to wait. Welcome to the After Reading, where I briefly discuss some thoughts I had while making this episode. First of all, can we take a moment to appreciate our MVP here, Neferu? He's been largely absent from the story up until this point, but what a splash he's made in this chapter. And this guy is much smarter and more absorbent. This guy is much smarter and more observant than first impressions would imply. He not only recognizes the role he played in fueling Marco and Amicus's fight, but he also drops some hard truth bombs on Marco, reminding him that his life is in very real danger, that there's a rumor Cassius might suspect who told the triumvirates about his plans, and that Amicus clearly does love him despite their cultural differences, and then he manages to get the two of them in the same room together to make up. Well, mostly anyway. Of course, getting them in the same room together would have been pointless had they both not had time to cool off, At this point, Marco was already prepared to apologize to Amicus and move past all of this, so long as he received an apology in return, which he did receive. So good on both of them for listening, even if it took them a while to work it out. What else? Virginia. She continues to be the most adult person in the room, and I always love scenes between her and Neferu. It's like they're sitting at their own loser table in a high school cafeteria or something. I'm calling it now. Virginia would be in the debate club, and Neferu would be the theater kid. Tell me I'm wrong. One more thing about Neferu before I forget. I like how serious he's taking his new position as Marco's protector. He clearly explains that the concept of having an... Whoa, what am I saying? He clearly explains that the concept of having other sentient beings as pets is absolutely illegal in his culture, and if Amicus had not been willing to pump a load into his ass as compensation, he'd have been willing to take on the responsibility anyway, because he cares about the treatment and dignity of other sentient beings, regardless of their species. What a swell guy. Hell, why aren't we trying to date him? Aside from coming across as a bit entitled by Wolven standards, he's way less problematic than our himbo wolf prince. I'd do Neferu. That's all I'm saying. Marco can have Amicus, I'll have Neferu. So, due to Marco being a blabbermouth, Amicus won the second trial. Will Cassius graciously admit defeat for the trial of combat? Probably not. Will anyone start paying attention to what the damn cat is doing? Probably not. And will Marco and Amicus move forward with their relationship regardless of how short-term it may be? Hopefully. Find out next time. Find out in the next episode of Adastra. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like, share it with your fellow degenerates, and leave a comment for the almighty YouTube algorithm. And also for me, I like comments. Until next time, thanks for watching.